But it's true that I think there is a reward, because I think we've never given up. I think we've put a lot of pressure.
Liverpool just gave their fans two completely different reasons to feel two completely different emotions, sometimes within the same 60 seconds of football. Because on one hand, this Newcastle game showed you exactly why the Iraola project could turn into something genuinely exciting. On the other hand, it exposed cracks that, if left unaddressed, could turn this season into a long and painful one. A 2-2 draw at St James's Park isn't a disaster on paper. But once you actually break down how those two goals went in, and once you look at who was thriving and who was drowning, you start to understand why this result feels a lot more complicated than a simple share of the spoils. So let's get into it. 5 things that should make you excited about this Liverpool team, and 5 things that should genuinely worry you. And stick around, because the last concern on this list might be the most important tactical question Iraola has to answer all season. Let's start with the good news, because there was real good news. The first name that has to come up is Victor Munoz. He wasn't even in the starting 11, and yet by full time he was arguably the most talked about Liverpool player on the pitch. What made his cameo stand out wasn't just the penalty he won in the dying minutes, it was everything leading up to it. Every time the ball found him, something happened. He wasn't dribbling for the sake of it, he wasn't just running into space and hoping. He was direct, decisive and comfortable, driving at a tired Newcastle backline in a way nobody else in a red shirt managed for large parts of the match. He kept the ball alive on the byline on more than one occasion, when it looked destined to go out for a goal kick, the kind of small, unglamorous effort that doesn't show up in headlines but wins you football matches. Then, with the game hanging in the balance, he drove at Lewis Hall, drew the foul and handed Szoboszlai the chance to salvage a point. Is this one performance enough to say Liverpool have found their long-term right-wing answer? Not yet. But it's enough to say Iraola has a genuine decision to make before the Forest game, because benching a player who just changed the entire complexion of your season opener is a lot harder to justify than it sounds. The second real positive, and maybe the most important one long-term, is Szoboszlai. If you've watched Liverpool over the last couple of seasons, you'll know the debate about him has never really gone away. Is he a number 8, a number 6, a wide option, a super sub who never quite gets a settled role? Against Newcastle, you got a glimpse of what he looks like when a manager just lets him press, cover ground, and get into the box without overthinking his exact job title. His work rate was relentless. He was covering ground other midfielders simply weren't covering, closing down passing lanes, popping up in both boxes, and then, when it mattered most, stepping up under enormous pressure to smash home the equalising penalty into a corner that every single person in the stadium knew he was aiming for. That's not just composure, that's a player who looks like he finally trusts the system around him. If Iraola keeps building a midfield that lets Szoboszlai do a bit of everything rather than boxing him into one rigid role, this could be the season he becomes undroppable. Third on the list, Cody Gakpo. There's been transfer noise around him all summer, with reports suggesting the club could be open to selling. Against Newcastle, he gave everyone a reminder of exactly why that would be a difficult decision to make. His movement between the lines was intelligent all game, and when Gravenberch found him in space, he did what he does better than almost anyone else at the club: hit a strike with real conviction and put it exactly where the goalkeeper couldn't reach. That goal single-handedly dragged Liverpool back into a game they were at risk of losing control of. The bigger question with Gakpo has never been about talent. Everyone knows he has that. It's about consistency across a full 90 minutes and across a full season. He faded badly in the final half hour here, which we'll get to later. But the fact remains, on his day, in this front line, he still looks like one of the most dangerous attacking options this club has. Fourth, and this one might surprise you given how bad Liverpool's homework problems looked at times, but Florian Wirtz deserves real credit here. He's a player who tends to split opinion depending on who you ask. Some fans see a genius operating on a different wavelength. Others see someone who drifts in and out of games. Against Newcastle, he was arguably Liverpool's most coherent attacking presence for large spells. He kept appearing in pockets of space almost out of nowhere, shielding the ball under pressure with far more composure than he showed last season, and consistently finding teammates between the lines. He wasn't directly on the score sheet, but the build-up to Liverpool's equaliser had his fingerprints all over it, even if the final ball didn't come off. When a player who isn't scoring or assisting still looks like your most important creative outlet, that tells you something about the level he's operating at. Fifth, and this is the collective positive rather than an individual one, Liverpool's ability to find space between Newcastle's lines all game. Whatever structural problems this team has defensively, and there are plenty, going forward they looked genuinely dangerous whenever they slowed down and played through the thirds rather than around them. Wirtz dropping deep, Gakpo drifting inside, Szoboszlai bursting beyond. It created genuine confusion for a well-drilled Newcastle side. This wasn't Route 1 football, and it wasn't aimless possession either. There were moments, particularly in the 10 minutes either side of the equaliser, where you could see exactly what Iraola's attacking vision looks like once it clicks. And this is where the game becomes confusing, because the exact same aggressive approach that made Liverpool look so dangerous going forward may also be responsible for their biggest problems. Let's start with Jeremie Frimpong, because his afternoon was rough. Both Newcastle goals had a common thread running through them, and it wasn't a coincidence. Liverpool's rest defence, the shape they're left in the moment they lose the ball, was consistently exposed because both fullbacks were pushed so high up the pitch. Frimpong in particular was caught upfield repeatedly, leaving Newcastle's fastest players with acres of space to run into. On the opening goal, Elanga simply had too big a head start on the recovery run, and no amount of effort was going to close that gap once the space existed. Is this entirely Frimpong's fault? Not really, he's doing exactly what he's being coached to do. Get forward, overload the width, create overlaps. But there's a legitimate question here about whether Liverpool can afford to ask one of the league's most attack-minded fullbacks to also be the last line of defensive cover against a team built specifically to counter-attack teams that push numbers forward. Which brings us to Milos Kerkez on the other side and the wider defensive picture. Kerkez had a difficult day too, and again some of it looks less like individual error and more like structural risk. When both fullbacks commit forward simultaneously and both midfielders are also pushing into advanced positions, Liverpool are essentially defending with a back three and a lot of hope. Newcastle didn't need to be brilliant to exploit that, they just needed to be patient and quick in transition, which is exactly the kind of side they are. This isn't really about whether Kerkez is a good defender. Most nights he is. It's about whether Iraola's structure is currently protecting his fullbacks enough for them to do their jobs properly. Right now, the honest answer is no. Third, and this one is going to divide opinion, Alexander Isak. On the surface, a striker who didn't touch the ball in a dangerous position all game and didn't register a shot looks like a bad performance, full stop. But dig a little deeper, and the more interesting question isn't about Isak's touch, it's about service. Liverpool were playing without a recognised out-and-out target for large parts of this game, with the midfield and wide players constantly drifting into central areas rather than stretching play and getting crosses or through balls into the box for him to attack. If your record signing barely gets a sniff of the ball in good areas, that's not purely on him. The concern here isn't whether Isak has the quality, it's whether this system, in its current form, is actually built to get the best out of him, or whether he's going to spend the season isolated up top while everyone else plays combination football around him rather than through him. Fourth, and this is really the collective version of the Frimpong and Kerkez problem, Liverpool's midfield had almost no defensive shape whatsoever. Both central midfielders were consistently caught high up the pitch when possession turned over, which meant Newcastle's transitions into the space behind them went completely unchecked. This isn't really about individual quality, it's about balance. When you have attacking fullbacks, attacking midfielders, and a striker who needs service, somebody in that team has to be willing to sit, screen, and break up play before it becomes dangerous. Against Newcastle, nobody was doing that job consistently, and it showed in both goals conceded. Which leads us to the fifth and biggest concern of all, and it's less about any single player and more about whether this entire approach is sustainable across a real Premier League season. The attacking football looked genuinely thrilling in patches, Szoboszlai looked like he'd found a role that suits him. Munoz looked like a genuine breakthrough talent. Gakpo and Wirtz both showed real quality in the final third. But football seasons aren't decided by 20-minute spells of brilliance, they're decided by whether you can control games for 90 minutes, week after week, against sides who will absolutely target the exact space Frimpong and Kerkez left open here. If Liverpool can't find a way to protect their backline while still committing bodies forward, teams are going to sit deep, absorb the early pressure and pick Liverpool off exactly the way Newcastle did. That's not scaremongering, that's simply what elite opposition's scouting departments will already be planning for the trip to Anfield. So where does that leave Liverpool after Game 1 of this new era? Honestly, there are more reasons to be encouraged than there are to panic. This is a team still finding its identity under a brand new manager, and the attacking signs, particularly from Szoboszlai and Munoz, suggest there's real quality in this squad once the pieces click into place. But the defensive and structural issues on show here are not small details you can just coach away in one training session. They go right to the heart of how Iraola wants his fullbacks and midfielders to play, and until that balance is found, Liverpool are going to keep giving good sides exactly the kind of space Newcastle just exploited. So, after watching Liverpool against Newcastle, are you more excited about what this team could become, or more worried about what could go wrong? Let me know your biggest positive and your biggest concern down in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed because we'll be back after every single game this season with honest Liverpool analysis. No sugarcoating, no doom and gloom for the sake of it. Just the truth about what we're watching.